today. And as Heidi mentioned, I am the Digital Communications Manager at Fairtrade USA. We are a nonprofit in the Bay Area of California with the goal of getting businesses and farmers and factories on board with the benefits of sustainable supply chains. We have a pretty limited budget as a nonprofit, so our digital marketing efforts, and especially getting earned media, is incredibly valuable for advancing our cause. As Heidi mentioned, if you have any questions, either immediately after the webinar or in the coming weeks, I'd be happy to chat with you on Twitter and let you know how we do what we do. So without further ado, let's dive in. As you know, the title of this webinar is the Top 5 Secrets to Earned Media Success, and we're going to be covering these five pillars of our strategy. So first is establishing partnerships to drive scale. Second, creating a compelling story, capturing a unique user experience, extending the life of campaigns beyond just the initial conversation spikes, and then building advocacy and community so people continue sharing your message. And a little bit more about Fairtrade USA. We opened our doors in 1998, and with the goal of encouraging businesses and consumers to be conscious of where their purchases were coming from, and to understand that every single cup of coffee we drink, every chocolate bar we eat, every t-shirt that we wear comes from someone somewhere in the world. And too often consumers are disconnected with the people at the other end of the supply chain, and those people are really, they've really been invisible for most consumers. And so we're all about connecting the supply chain through transparency, and as a result, we find that consumers are more empowered in being able to make a difference with their purchases, and we find businesses and communities really being able to creatively innovate ways to empower their members as well. And we take a trade, not aid-based approach, which really means we don't fundraise a bunch of money and then go into a country and tell them how they should spend it to improve their lives. Instead, we put a set of standards in place where the farmers are ensured that they make a fair living wage, and they are also ensured the ability to democratically organize to decide how to improve their own communities. And we've seen some great strides with that over the last 15 years, and activating consumers and getting them on board with this journey of empowerment has been critical to our success, and social media and earned media in particular has been a big part of that. So the first secret to earned media success is partnering for success. There are, whether you're a nonprofit like we are that has partner brands that we work with, or if you're a for-profit company, there are no doubt businesses within your space that also want to get the word out about the good that they're doing. And so we really have found that by pooling resources, we're able to reach a much wider group of people. And it's really enabled us to also appeal to wide groups of people. So as opposed to discussing one individual product or one individual aspect that might appeal to some, we are able to talk about a range of products and a range of benefits so that we can appeal to a vast group of people. This also really requires understanding your audience. So obviously, some partnerships aren't going to work out. If we partnered with a company that was known for not being environmentally responsible, that's obviously not going to provide the authenticity that's needed for people to really engage. And so as we've been working over the last few years to improve our success through partnerships, we've really gotten a good understanding of the type of variety that people like to see, and also the type of products that they like to receive together. So as you see, for this particular example, we've got three different types of chocolate there, and then also some brownie mix in addition to coffee and tea. All of those products go pretty well together. They're things that you would buy in the same grocery store trip, as opposed to lumping in vastly different types of partners like, say, technology, apparel, and then chocolate. And so one thing that I cannot emphasize enough is really explore creative partnerships and really communicate the mutual benefits to the partners of the fact that you're really going to be able to unlock a much wider sphere of influence when you all work together. So once you've got your partners on board, the next key is to create a compelling story. So as you see this quote from the founder and president of Real Living, for your business to really resonate with customers, it has to be based on something genuine. The benefit of social media, especially to small organizations like ours, is the ability to communicate authenticity on a daily basis and to really show consumers that you're on this journey with them. It's not something where you're trying to get them to just promote your product, but it's a relationship, and you really need to. We've really found that by telling a story and showing consumers how they can be part of the solution with their everyday purchases and how they can feel good about the things that they buy, as opposed to only worrying about the potential negative consequences, really drives a lot of sharing. As we all know, when people are sharing in social media, they're usually sharing things that are going to make them look good or feel good. They're sharing things that they want other people to know. And so when you're giving them content that makes them look good or feel good, they're much more likely to share it. And so we always, obviously, fair trade comes as a result of some really bad things that can happen in various industries like cocoa or coffee. But by focusing on the positives and the benefits that we can facilitate by purchasing fair trade, we find that people really resonate strongly with that, and it dramatically increases the amount of sharing that we get. So when you're putting together your story, whether you're a local business or a multinational, think about the aspects of your product that people would feel good about. Think about the aspects of your product that a mom would want to tell her children about and would want to use as a teaching opportunity for her children. And that, depending on the product, can sometimes take some digging, but once you create that compelling storyline, it really provides a lot of valuable material for people to go and be advocates on your behalf. And then in addition to telling, once you've determined the story, you'll see that in this particular Clout Perk, we have products from a variety of brands, but we also provided some materials for them to learn more about what these brands really stand for and what fair trade really stands for. So we provide them with an info card that has a few bullet points of information to provide more context and to really drive home why you can feel good about consuming these products. And then we also gave them the ability to act upon their newfound knowledge. So we gave them a card that they can take to supermarkets to ask for more fair trade. And granted, not everyone is going to go that extra mile, but for the people that are willing to, you want to make sure that they have material that seamlessly enables them to act on your behalf. If you're not providing them with that extra piece of material, that kind of bonus call to action, then you're potentially leaving some advocacy opportunities on the table. And so it's just really important to not only tell the short story, but provide the ability to tell that a little bit longer form story so that people can really get bought into not only what it is you're communicating, but what they can do as a result of learning more. And so in our Clout campaigns, we have, in addition to providing packaging that goes along with our values, so eco-friendly packaging, and then these materials such as the info card and the product request card, we've found that influencers can engage in a way that's most comfortable for them. And that's really where you see an increase in sharing and an increase in advocacy. It is when you meet them where they are and you're providing them with something that is not out of their comfort zone. And that's where your story really begins to spread. And so once you've created these partnerships, then you have the foundation for your campaign, and then you have crafted your story and you've put together the various assets to tell that story. The next thing you want to make sure is that people are going to actually want to share. So again, people want to share things that look good. And so we put a lot of time into thinking about what's our clout box going to look like when it's opened, when we're doing blogger outreach campaigns. What is the first thing that they see when they open it up? When they take a picture of the various products in the box, is that picture just going to look like an amalgamation of things grabbed from a shelf off a supermarket? Or are you going to will that one photograph be able to communicate the story? And so as you see in this example, having the products in addition to the messaging on the tote bag that we included provided a really good way for people to immediately capture that moment and communicate the message or communicate our story within that single graphic. We've also found that just like in any other, just like when you're posting to your Facebook page or to Twitter, when you are direct about the action that you'd like your, in this case, influencer to take, they're much more likely to do it. So on our info cards, we explicitly say, these products look great on Instagram. This tote bag is going to, this tote bag is going to look great on Pinterest. And we provide them within the box in multiple places, the hashtag for them to get involved. And so again, it's about making it as seamless as possible for influencers to be involved. You want to give them all the tools they need and make sure that they don't have to do any extra effort to share, because the more effort it takes, the less people that are actually going to do it. And so again, the big takeaway here in enabling people to immediately capture that moment is give them think about what it's going to look like in a photograph. Think about what you would want it to look like on your own Facebook page. If it meets that bar, then chances are that your influencers are going to be willing to post it as well. And so being direct about where to post it and putting things in that are really photogenic and work together and create a cohesive story through an image has been incredibly valuable for us. And this is something that we learned the hard way. Our first, some of our initial influencer outreach campaigns, we didn't put as much thought into what the photos would look like. And as a result, we saw photos and content that really only showed one product, or sometimes it didn't even have a photo because the things we put together didn't look that great. And so taking a little extra time to really think about what the end content is going to look like dramatically increases the amount of content that gets generated. And so one thing that I would just also really think about when you're encouraging people to capture the moment is don't forget the little things. So you can see it a little bit on the right-hand picture here, but instead of just putting products in a box, we put a little bit of crinkle paper in there to just give it a little extra depth and a little extra personality. We put stickers on the outside of the box so they're excited about opening it, and so that when they're in the act of opening it, they're already excited about taking that picture. So just think about those little things that are going to excite someone about sharing the things that you've just provided them with. And remember that people are under no obligation to share your content. You can provide them with all the products in the world, but that doesn't mean that they have to share. And so going that extra mile and ensuring that it's something that they're going to want to share and is going to make them look good is going to have a dramatic increase in the amount of sharing that you see. And like you see from this quote from Brian Solis, if you love something, you share it. And so our goal, whenever we put together an influencer campaign, is put something together that people are going to love. Put something in there that they're going to be really excited that they, not only that they got a free product, but that it's something that they're really going to enjoy and really resonates with them. And while we all measure campaigns by impressions, it's, as you see in this quote, it's really about the expressions. It's enabling people to express themselves while still basically promoting your product. So after you've gotten them to capture the moment, then the next thing to think about as you're planning your campaign is timing the release of your campaign. And so, as we all know, the earned media is most beneficial when it's working in conjunction with paid and owned media. And so really thinking about not just, okay, we've gotten influencers to share, we've gotten consumers to share our content, but when do we want them to share? So for example, October is Fair Trade Month in the US. And when we did our Clout Perk last October, we spent some time thinking, when do we really want people, when do we want to drive those spikes in conversation volume? Originally, we thought it might make sense to have the Clout Perk go live in the middle of September so that they're receiving their perk at the beginning of October and driving content right at the beginning of the campaign. But from our experience with previous perks, we knew that a lot of that content generation actually occurs when they're first claiming the perk as well. And so having that conversation spike occur 2 weeks before a broader campaign happens wasn't going to be as beneficial. And as we started thinking more about that, we also realized that in past campaigns, we get huge spikes in the first week of October, and then it really dwindles off for the rest of the month. And we also saw, this, our Clout Perk, as a good opportunity to provide another conversation volume spike in the middle of the month. So people claimed the perk on the 1st of October. That drove a lot of conversation about people just excited to eventually receive the perk. And then as conversations were starting to dwindle as the month went on, they received their boxes in the second week of October, or at the end of the second week. And so around October 15th, we saw another really big conversations volume spike, and it was really rich content that people were sharing. And so not only was this beneficial for our own campaign, but it also showed the partners that we had enrolled with us that they were getting sustained mentions, sustained conversation volume, and sustained sharing as well. And again, it's really about fully engaging those consumers. So if we had launched the perk in September before we had really started a lot of our heavy campaign messaging on Facebook and some of the and started leveraging some of the in-kind advertising dollars we had received, then people would kind of get this insular experience with fair trade. But by launching it in the beginning of October, we ensured that they were not only getting this personal connection to us through Clout, but then they were seeing us in a variety of other avenues. And we really saw a lot of increase in the relationships that we created because people were seeing us in a lot more places. And so it's really important to think about the timing of the release, everything down to the day of the week that it's being released, knowing when your consumers, when your influencers are most active. If you see on your Facebook page and on Twitter that your consumers aren't very active on Thursdays and Fridays, then those probably aren't the days to launch your campaign. And so really thinking about the timing can have a dramatic effect on the amount of sharing that you get and how long you're able to sustain that conversation. And then finally, after we have gotten our partners enrolled, we've created this compelling story, we've given influencers the ability to immediately capture the moment, and we've figured out the timing of the release of the campaign, then it's really time to build those relationships. And so it's incredibly important to personalize your message. The whole point of earned media, the whole point of reaching out to influencers as opposed to using that budget to just run ads is the relationships that you're able to build. and the fact that they will continue being advocates on your behalf well beyond just that single impression. And so in order to really build those relationships, it's important to communicate with consumers and also show them that you value what they're saying, and really show them that you're listening, and the best way to do that is by making changes. And so you'll see on the right, a couple years ago, we ran a campaign that was Fair Trade Mother's Day. And as you see, it's very fair trade centric. It's about fair trade just as much as it is about mothers. And as we heard from consumers and from various influencers that we worked with, they were happy to support fair trade, but really Mother's Day is about moms. It's not about fair trade. And so as a result, the next year we tweaked our message, and you'll see on the left, we switched to a different tactic where moms make a world of difference. And so we still have fair trade in there in the sub banner, and we still have our certification mark on there. But this is really, we've made moms front and center. They are really the focal point of the campaign. And we saw a dramatic increase in sharing as a result. We saw lots of consumers wanting to share the message that there are moms all over the world that deserve to be appreciated, that without moms in Ecuador and in Indonesia and in Uganda, we would not have all the products that we really take for granted on a daily basis. And by making that relatively small change after listening to our consumers and really understanding what they wanted, we saw an enormous increase in sharing, because they were sharing messages about moms. And fair trade was woven into that every single time, and fair trade was included in those conversations. But by making the conversation not first about us, but instead first about what our consumers really cared about and what resonated with them and what really made them feel good about sharing, we really not only saw an increase in conversation volume, but we saw an increase in sustained relationships. We saw a dramatic increase in influencers who came back to us a month later and asked questions about fair trade, where before that wasn't happening. We saw people who were then reaching out to us and asking what more they could do to support fair trade, or to tell friends about fair trade, or to get fair trade products available in their grocery store. And that was behavior that we just didn't see previously. And so I cannot emphasize enough the fact that social media provides a really unique ability to iterate your message on a really easy basis and in a really scalable way. And by making a small change and by telling people and showing them that you're listening to them and that you're on this journey together, and you really want to figure out what means a lot to them and therefore show them how they can make a difference, it's been incredibly valuable for us in terms of really building out the number of people who are talking about fair trade. And so just for example, we have in Europe, awareness of just the concept of fair trade is over 90%. It's been a pretty big part of grocery stores for a while over there, whereas in the U.S., awareness is right around 40%. And so we have a long way to go to getting the U.S. consumer really bought into the idea of when you treat the person on the other end of the supply chain fairly, then it's a win-win for everyone involved. But we've found that by building these strong relationships, by partnering to increase our scale, and to provide these stories that people can easily communicate through just a simple photo, we're really seeing dramatic changes in purchases. And it's been really inspiring to see that when you give people content that they want to share and you make it easy for them to share, they're willing to do it. And that is the end of my top 5 secrets for earned media success. And again, in terms of earned media, it takes a lot to reach out to influencers. It takes a lot of time and effort to really build those relationships. And we've been incredibly fortunate to have found a really efficient way to reach out to those people through Clout. And I just want to thank Clout for having me today and giving me the opportunity to present to you guys. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you, Bennett. We actually do have a few questions that have come in over the course of the presentation. So a couple of them are related to, how you go about identifying who the influencers are within your audience, and how do you identify the different fan bases that you want to connect with across networks, so whether it be Twitter or Facebook for your company?
That's a great question, and where we used to cast a really wide net, and we used to take the approach of, well, if we are targeting lots of different types of people, then it gives our potential, it dramatically increases our potential reach. But we were being something to everyone as opposed to being everything to someone. And so we found that when we've become a lot more focused, and again, this is a place where social media and Clout, particularly in terms of targeting, is incredibly valuable. When we became really focused and we decided, okay, we're not trying to reach every consumer. Eventually we want to. But right now, if we can create content that really resonates with females 25 to 44 who purchase organics and are into healthy lifestyle and living, then we can really target our message and dramatically increase the amount that they share. And so we've taken a very targeted approach to who we're reaching, while also keeping in mind the fact that you still have to make sure that that target isn't sacrificing all your reach. And so moms who are interested in organics, it's still a pretty big segment. There's a lot of people out there that we still haven't reached that fit that target, but it's also narrow enough where as we're involved in conversations on Twitter, we can really be involved in those more targeted conversations. As we're posting content to Facebook, we can put it through the lens of what will resonate with that particular group. And then, of course, if we're ever running any sort of paid media, we have the ability to hyper-target towards that group. And we've really seen a dramatic increase in affinity and in advocacy by taking a very targeted approach and really comparing what aspects of our brand would resonate most with which demographic.
Okay, great. And next question was, how do you've run a number of different campaigns, but how do you keep your story fresh and that fan base engaged over time? Yeah, that's definitely been something that has that we continually kind of grapple with, because it's, when it comes down to it, fair trade is really it's a pretty basic set of principles. It's about protecting the environment. It's about improving lives. It's about ensuring that you're creating quality products, and that's an easy thing to let get stale. But when you think about the fact that you're interacting with people, you're building relationships, using people as the center of your story enables you to always keep it fresh, because quite frankly, there's always more people out there. And so we really have, as we've kind of changed our approach from talking about the benefits of fair trade to highlighting individuals within the fair trade system, of which there are endless stories. And the same can go for your product. So highlighting individuals who are inspiring examples, either as customers or employees, that's the way that we've really been able to keep things fresh. So as opposed to just talking about how fair trade enables farmers to convert to organic and conserve water, we will highlight an individual farmer and tell her story and show how she was able to convert to organic, or show how she was able to send her kids to school. And creating those really personalized stories, it takes some time and effort in terms of content creation, but we found that that's been the best way to keep things fresh, as opposed to just focusing on our brand messaging points.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And the other question that came in was, we talk a lot about earned media with relation to products, and that historically I think has been how you guys have used it, but have you used it at all, or have you worked with it in terms of services within your company?
We have, and that's a little less on the direct-to-consumer marketing, but at the end of the day, our organization is a service provider. We personally don't provide any products, and so we certify supply chains to ensure that they adhere to our set of standards. And so when we're, just like with the products, where we carefully choose them based on the how they fit together and what's really going to resonate with people, we do the same thing when communicating and marketing our services, especially to brands in the U.S. and to the hundreds of farms that we work with around the world. And again, because of the breadth of our services, we've found, just like with the products, it's really important to package it cohesively. And so when you're talking about your services, it's important to think about which services are complementary. You may offer a variety of services, but are they really part of a unique and compelling story? If we're talking about environmental protection and water conservation, then that's probably not, within that conversation, don't want to include worker empowerment and democratic organization and things to that effect. And so when talking about your services and really figuring out the story behind those, again, I go back to who are the people that it benefits and how does it benefit them? And for us, that, again, it changes between environmental protection and community development, and really highlighting how our services have benefited someone in a very tangible and specific way. It enabled them to convert their farm to organic, and enabled this chocolate company to have much lower switching costs in their supply chain because they're actually empowering their farmers and workers. When we get really focused around the story that results from that service, we've seen really similar types of advocacy and engagement as we do when we get really focused around the products.
Okay, great. And we've got a few more questions here that have flowed in. So some of them are focused more around, I guess, can you talk about how you measure your campaigns in terms of success on both identifying how do you determine whether or not it's the social coming into Twitter or Facebook or these other channels that's creating a boost in brand lift, versus how you measure, or if you're able to historically with your campaigns, tie back the earned media directly to purchases or an increased dollar amount?
Yeah, so this is something that everyone struggles with, is how do we really complete that entire path to transaction and connect a tweet to an actual purchase. And this is a place where we're still working on it, and we absolutely haven't perfected it. But what we've really tried hard to do is, one, ensure that you have a unifying message or tagline across your entire campaign, and ensuring that everyone is sharing the same, whether it be hashtag or the same link, making sure that everyone is really unified in what they're sharing. And then obviously the benefit of digital campaigns is that you can drive directly to the point of purchase. And so what we've done is, whenever we're setting up an influencer campaign, we make sure that we have allotted the time necessary to reply to every single person who mentions us in the campaign. Or if we're not able to get to everyone, then we segment based on how influential they are.
And when we reply to them with really tangible calls to action. So if someone tweets out that they're really excited about the Clout Perk and they can't wait to try the coffee, then we'll reply to them as soon as possible and say that we're thrilled that they're excited about it, and don't forget that next time you're buying coffee, you can benefit farmers and workers around the world. And then the final key part to that is then include a link for them to actually buy it. And we use Bitly to track all of those click-throughs, and we've gotten to a place where we can really get some understanding of what types of campaigns and what types of content are leading to those purchases. So this is, again, where digital media provides a really unique opportunity to drive someone immediately to a purchase as opposed to offline media. And so it's really important to continue that conversation. You can't start the conversation with, hey, go buy this product. But once people have expressed interest in the product or the service or the idea, then you have license to go back to them and thank them and give them a direct way to purchase that product. And we've seen some dramatic lift in purchases for businesses that we've worked with as a result. And it's been really encouraging to see that people are willing to actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk.
Okay, great. And in our conversation on earned media, I think we assume that everyone has a large follower base on different social networks, and that company has been pretty engaged for a while. But do you have any advice for companies that are maybe just starting out or trying to drive and build awareness of a fairly new product and start to build up that consumer base on social from the very beginning?
Yeah, that's where the first part of the first secret that I shared, partnering for success, is incredibly critical. Growing our social media presences has been a slow and steady process, and it's not something that exploded overnight. And that's where, when we identify partnerships, it's really about what is in it for both of us. And usually what we're able to provide to partners is authenticity as a third-party nonprofit. And so it really, as opposed to the brands just providing a product, we're able to provide some authenticity around that product. But then for it to be mutually beneficial for us, we make sure that we're working with brands that have a wide reach. And so finding those partnerships where they're able to expand our reach and they're able to tell their followers to like our Facebook page and to follow us on Twitter and on other networks, in exchange for us being this kind of third-party mediator that enables that authenticity, that's been really helpful. And obviously, in terms of the specific tactics, that's kind of unique to our situation, but the lesson remains the same for any organization. If you're a small business, you have the ability to connect with consumers individually in a way that some of your suppliers probably don't. And so crafting those partnerships in a way that really communicates the mutual benefit for both you and your partner, and then ensuring that part of that, a key component of that partnership, is them promoting you in social, has really worked well for us in terms of growing our social media presences. And also in terms of growing our presences, this is where influencer campaigns have been really beneficial. So you don't have to have a large Facebook page or Twitter following to do some blogger outreach. You don't have to have a large following to do direct outreach on Twitter. As long as you make the time to continue those conversations, then people will start, just the matter of them engaging with you is going to expose your brand to all of their followers as well. And so it's really finding those partnerships to kind of catalyze the campaign. And then once you have started engaging with influencers, keeping that relationship going and keeping that conversation going is something that you can do with 5 followers or 100,000 followers. And there is no, as we all know, there's no just secret to getting 100,000 followers overnight. But there is the ability for you every day to be having meaningful conversations on behalf of your brand, and you will see growth as a result.
All right, great. We are down to the bottom of our questions that were submitted. And so I guess before we sign off, I just want to push it back over to you, I guess, and see if there's any other advice that you have outside of these 5 steps for anyone that's looking to get started to generate more earned media and engage their audience in a deeper level.
Yeah, I think the one thing to really just spend a lot of time thinking about is what makes your brand unique? What makes your product or service unique? If you obviously have a unique product or service, otherwise you wouldn't be in business. And so really don't try to be everything to everyone. Don't try to, I liken it to the lesson of Haagen-Dazs. Don't try to appeal to every person who buys ice cream. Appeal to that person who loves chocolate and give them triple chocolate chunk fudge and be everything to that person. And when you really figure out what makes your product unique and who are the people that are just going to be delighted with your product, that's where your storytelling really begins. And that was a big learning curve for us. It took us a while to really figure out what made us unique. Our role as a third-party certifier that could kind of bring brands together around this positive message, that wasn't something that happened overnight. And so once we really focused on what makes us unique, what's something that we can offer that other people can't, as a small business, you can offer things that large businesses can't. And same goes for the opposite. As a large business, there are things that you can offer that small businesses can't. But once you hyper-focus on what really makes you unique, and then you create your story around that and really craft your partnerships around what that unique value is that you're bringing to the table, then you can really start to own conversations legitimately, and you can get people involved in a very authentic way who are going to be very interested in your product or service.
All right, great. Well, Bennett, thank you for a wonderful presentation today. And thank you to everybody else on the line that was able to join us. We really appreciate it, and we hope you found it informative and helpful. Before we sign off, we would really appreciate your feedback in a brief survey that should appear as soon as we close out of the webinar. You should see that on your screen. And you will be receiving an email alert for the on-demand recorded version of today's event, so you can review any material that you missed or simply want to go back over again. So thank you again, everyone, and thank you, Bennett, for a great presentation, and have a great day.
My pleasure. Have a good one.